Many people have been working much of the day, and then in the traffic coming to the BSV here, and just establishing some mindfulness. We come to do some sitting meditation. Just being aware of what we're doing with our bodies. And we use the awareness of feelings. It's a way of Lord Buddha points us to this method, this skillful means, with his wisdom, because he understands our minds need objects. And there's always mind objects arising and ceasing. And when we attend to sights outside, sounds outside, think about other people, various concepts, other places, the past, the future, then our mindfulness becomes scattered, which is normal. It's just learning how to understand what a mind is, how it works. It's actually quite extraordinary among modern peoples how little attention people give to understanding what a mind is. The very thing that experiences life, very few people have a genuine interest in understanding what it is, how it works. And a level of fascination with things outside. It's not very balanced. Well, it's actually completely imbalanced. And as Buddhists, we're very fortunate because Lord Buddha explains to us mind is the forerunner. You look at some central simple teachings in the Dhammapada. Mind is the forerunner. Other simple teachings, what the mind attends to. The mind becomes like that. It takes on attributes of things it attends to. So, as students of Lord Buddha, due to the compassion and wisdom of our teacher, we get a lot more help than other people. He explains to us in the Four Foundations of Mindfulness teachings, when we're aware of the body, we're just aware of the postures. These things are so subtle and so simple that we overlook them because concepts are fascinating. And Lord Buddha is saying, pay attention to this. Know when you're sitting, know when you're walking, know when you're lying down. He even says know when you're defecating, when you're urinating and defecating. One should know what one's doing with one's body. So what he's basically saying is this awareness of what you're doing with your body should be consistent in all postures. So keeping your mind, a percentage of your awareness established in your body. And then with feelings, the instructions are to know pleasant feelings as pleasant feelings, and neutral feelings as neutral feelings, unpleasant feelings as unpleasant feelings. And this is here where we come to our breath meditation. I encourage you all now to try to be aware of the feelings of the in-breath and the feelings of the out-breath. Coming through the nose, the chest, into the abdomen. Out from the abdomen, chest and nose. So it's not a concept, it's not an idea, it's not a visualization, and it requires absolutely no controlling, so this is difficult for modern people. We like distraction, we like sophistication. And this act of being with bare attention, bare awareness, can seem difficult. The only reason it's difficult is because we haven't applied ourselves in trying to do it frequently enough, often enough, consistently enough. Experienced meditators, people who make a commitment to meditating daily, especially people who meditate a couple of times a day, notice that once the mind understands the benefits, because we're all trying to be happy, we're all looking for pleasure in our own way, and the mind doesn't yet understand that to be still, to be collected, not to be fascinated, is actually extremely pleasant. And so we have to go against the current of the world. And we have to be interested, and at first we have to trust Lord Buddha when he said cultivating the four foundations of mindfulness leads to the deathless, merges in the deathless. The deathless means nibbana, enlightenment, liberation, unshakable peace. So that sounds very interesting. For all of us who are interested in going beyond every type of suffering, that's a very clear instruction. And it gives cause for optimism. And so we have to commit with a certain degree of faith in Lord Buddha and his enlightened disciples. And so we're just placing the awareness and trying to stay. We're knowing one in-breath, and knowing one out-breath. Usually we'll find in breath meditation that when we come to the sitting, thoughts take us away, or sometimes some heavy sleepiness. We fall asleep for a second, wake up. Thoughts can carry us away, and we don't feel much of the breath. We might get parts of it. But in this act of keeping on trying, inclining towards knowing the breath, we become aware of more parts of it. So it's important not to get impatient, frustrated, not to try too much controlling. We just keep trying, so it's more about gentleness and consistency. Come back, start again, start again. When the mindfulness gets a little sharper, you'll find that you're able to be with more of that experience, the felt experience of breathing. It's like we have to take if you imagine a simile of a hand which is holding many different tools, multitasking. And the mind is like that. It's picking up the past, picking up the future, picking up thoughts about other people, picking up thoughts about oneself. And we're dropping those objects, putting them down, putting them down, putting them down, putting them down. And you place your hand one on top of another in active meditation. With your mind has to put down all these objects. And so when you recognize that you're picking something else up, it's okay. You recognize it, put it down. Picking something up, put it down gently. And we're picking up the awareness of the breathing. And in placing the awareness on this object, we're able to put down the other objects. The thing which is different about this object, mental object, meditation object, is that it's in the very center of your conscious experience. And so what happens when you're able to be with this experience, with this meditation object, is that the energy which has been being dissipated starts to collect. And when the mental energy collects, there's an experience of being more awake. There's an experience of clarity. And we might not realize that for many modern people the mind is very tired. It moves between thinking about many things and then falling asleep. And Ajahn Chah explains to us that a large part of practice is keeping the mind in the middle. So becoming aware of neutral feelings and being mindful of neutral feelings, such as the feelings associated with breathing, it helps you to stop craving for the pleasant and having aversion for the unpleasant. Because craving for pleasant experiences and trying to run away from unpleasant experiences is very tiring, and you'll never succeed. Can't only have pleasure. You can't avoid all displeasure. But in being able to be in the middle, we can restrain the craving and the aversion. Craving and aversion are hot. Talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, when you become aware of the mind object of anger, you place your awareness in the heart area when you're angry, you'll notice heat. Similarly with craving. If you have a strong craving, and you might notice some kind of spinning and dizziness in the head, the mind is dizzy with desire. In placing the mind in the middle, trying to restrain the mind, keep it in the middle, what you'll notice is that spinning slows down and that heat cools down. And the more consistently that you're able to just be with the awareness of the feelings of the breath, these neutral feelings, your mind becomes cool. When we think about the past, we think about the future, we think about other people, we think about the things we want, the things we don't want, the mind feels cluttered. It's like you're bumping into things, sharp things, hard things, reacting to things. But when you're able to keep the mind in the middle with this breath awareness, a sense of space opens up. And you realize that the mind, when it doesn't pick up these objects, has an empty nature, empty awareness. The mind's nature is just to know. No sights, no sounds, no tastes, no thoughts. But when mindfulness is weak, we're lost in those things. We don't know them. Not knowing as a concept. A knowing with this bare awareness, clear awareness, mindful awareness, Buddho. When you know these things as they are, a feeling is just a feeling. Physical feeling is a physical feeling. A body is a body. A thought is a thought. An emotion is a mind object. It's a mental feeling. Memories are memories. Perceptions are perceptions. When you know those things with some aloofness, with some equanimity, equipoise, the mind is able to rest, and there's an experience of spaciousness, clarity, silence, and it's very pleasant. The wonderful thing about breath meditation is that as your awareness becomes more clear, more refined, the breath becomes more shallow, more refined as well. And then you have to refine your awareness to know the more refined breath. And so this beautiful meditation tool Lord Buddha describes as the crown jewel of meditation methods, because it takes you from an ordinary, coarse, agitated state to a very refined and peaceful state. What you also notice is what starts as neutral feelings, as the awareness, if it can truly be with knowing the beginning, the middle, the end of an in-breath, the space, holding that awareness in the very same space where you're aware of the breath, and then knowing the beginning, middle and end of an out-breath. A rapture can arise in the mind, and the feelings associated with the breath become very pleasant. So what starts as a neutral feeling becomes a very refined and pleasant feeling. And if you stay with that awareness of a refined breath, that sense of clarity can become crystal clear, and the sense of coolness can become deep like an ocean. These people have these experiences of this deep, cool, clear clarity, and the awareness of the breath, the feelings are very pleasant, and there's rapturous feelings also arising. Sometimes people's hairs go on end, sometimes people have tears running down their face just from being aware of the breath. And so we have to give ourselves to this practice with a lot of interest and trust. Lord Buddha is pointing us in this direction. The crown jewel of the meditation methods is no small statement. Four foundations of mindfulness merge in the deathless, a state completely beyond all suffering. That is not a wishy-washy statement. That is the most profound statement the Buddha could make. These methods will liberate you. This awareness, when cultivated fully, the mind is purified of its greed, its hatred, and its delusion. Sometimes this process is likened to refining gold. You have to take the other elements out, and all that's left is the gold. And so all we do is we just keep coming back. If you are quite with the awareness of the breath, then the practice is just to stay in the center. Ajahn Chah uses the simile of being the one that sits in the seat of the mind, not allowing other guests to come and take that seat. So other guests could be the cravings for cravings not for, thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future. When you're sitting in the chair of the mind, they can't come and take over, they can't sit down. See them as if from a distance and don't let them sit down. They walk in the door and they walk out the door. But when mindfulness is fuzzy or weak or scattered, all sorts of guests come and sit, some of them welcome, some of them not welcome. And so just keeping on applying the mindfulness of breathing, being aware of those feelings, and neutral feelings, becoming refined feelings, and then this rapture can arise in the mind, and then tranquility can arise in the mind, to go through the rapture. Sometimes rapture is likened to being like the waves on top of the ocean. These thrilling sensations can fill the entire body, a sense of, in Pali it's called piti. Other people can feel heavy and solid like a mountain. That's one form of rapture. Other people can feel a sense of vast empty space like the sky. Other people can feel like they're floating. These subtle mental feelings all arising just because the mind is collecting and being still. When people have some experience of these things and develop some skill, you realize this pleasure is superior to the pleasure that comes from pleasant tastes, pleasant touch, pleasant sights, pleasant sounds. You realize this is what I've been looking for. I've been looking for happiness, I've been looking for pleasure, and this pleasure, Lord Buddha says, peacefulness is the highest pleasure. But we don't know that until we experience it, and we don't experience it until we develop consistent mindfulness. In the act of being more aware, more centered, more in the center of conscious experience, you begin to see mind states, as objects. You can see it's not you. When mindfulness is scattered and fuzzy, you think your thoughts are you. And you think about your thoughts, you wish you didn't have those thoughts. You wish you had good thoughts, you wish you didn't have nasty thoughts. You're sick of thinking these thoughts, you're sick of yourself. Very painful. Develop a little mindfulness, develop some skills, being aware of the breathing, and you just see a thought as a thought. You don't have to identify with it, you don't have to like it, you don't have to not like it, don't have to wish you didn't have it, don't have to not like yourself for having those thoughts. It's such a relief when you establish mindfulness of breathing and just aware of an in-breath, aware of an out-breath, and a thought comes up. It's just a thought. And you don't have to pick it up, you don't have to identify with it. How wonderful, a wonderful sense of relief. You don't have to carry around this identifying with everything as being oneself and liking it and not liking it. So seeing mind states as mind states, a mental object, arising and ceasing. We also understand that the reason we have the thoughts is because we've thought them in the past. So you can't annihilate them, nuke them, wish them away. They're arising due to conditions, and those conditions can often be way in the past, the way you've thought for lifetimes. So don't have to destroy all of the bad thoughts. You just need to know. Wholesome thought, not self. Neutral thought, not self. Unwholesome thought, not self. Arising, ceasing. Arising, staying for some time, ceasing. In terms of cultivating insight, when the mind becomes more peaceful, more clear, when the mindfulness is really there, you're seeing the beginning, the middle, the end, the space, the beginning, the middle, the end, the space, you can then just choose to notice the moment of cessation. One in-breath, arising, staying for some time, ceasing. Space. One out-breath, arising, staying for some time, ceasing. There's a little birth and little death in every breath. And when you have a little more space in the mind, a little more clarity, a thought comes in, you don't pick it up, you see a thought arising, ceasing. Arising, ceasing. And just notice the cessation. This is called Nirodha Sanya. Become aware of the cessation. Even if you don't develop amazing, profound vipassana jnana, insight knowledges, you do develop more wisdom, panya barami. You develop more wisdom, spiritual faculty, spiritual power, so that next time you might be deluded by an unwholesome mind state, there is that in the mind that knows it will cease. It's just very, very valuable. If people have accumulated spiritual practices in past lives, this breath meditation can lead into absorptions. The way my teachers explain it, at a certain point the mind isn't aware of the breath. The breath becomes more and more refined, very subtle, and the space between the breaths becomes longer. And as the mind's experiencing more rapture, more tranquility, that deep feeling of contentment and peace becomes the object, the meditation object, and the perception of the breath falls away. Many people get confused here. They think they've stopped breathing. The breathing's still occurring, it's very subtle, but what happens is because the mind is turning inwards, it's not aware of the feelings. And if you just stay, many people can see light, often white light or gold light at this point. You just stay with the peacefulness. The mind, when it's ready, will come out of that state and it will have more power and more clarity. You can use that, go back to the perception, go back to the breath meditation. And when it comes out of that peacefulness, the mind becomes full of peace to the extent that it's going inwards, it goes in, it rests, and then it comes out again. And then it's important then to pick up the meditation object again and then really notice that cessation, cessation, cessation. And try to see with the extra clarity, mind object as a mind object, physical feeling as a physical feeling, and we can investigate when there is a little more integrity, stability in the mind, a sense of having a center. Then things like knee pain, back pain, can actually have a closer look without aversion, without fear, without resentment, just having a closer look, and you'll see it's not just one feeling. There's an extraordinary amount of feelings there, and they're changing constantly. So when the mind is dull and mindfulness isn't very clear, knee pain appears like this solid thing that you want to get away from. If you're with the breath, it's a bit more peacefulness, a bit more clarity. You have a look at knee pain and you see this incredible play of very complex feelings intermingling and moving. So you see in that area the pain is moving, and it's actually very interesting. And once again, if the mindfulness is able to see that with clarity, a rapture can arise in the mind, so that the pain is one thing, the unpleasant feeling is one thing, but that part of the mind which is knowing it as a feeling can be experiencing a great deal of rapture. And so with that kind of space and joy, internal nourishment, the knee pain becomes something that can be investigated, which is very interesting. And you learn a great deal about the nature of feelings. And you learn that many things that we learn that when mindfulness is weak, we suffer. We identify with things, we want them, we don't want them. It's suffering. The kilesa, which are latent in the mind, swell up in the mind and fill the mind. The mind becomes dark, it can even become black if these things are very powerful. Defilement. Mindfulness is likened to diamond-like clarity. So when mindfulness is in the mind, held in the mind, knowing these four foundations, these four bases of reference, the darkness can't swell up in the mind. And you see, the more mindfulness you have, the more wisdom you have, there's very little suffering. There's a mind that is able to be with unpleasant feelings, and that part of the mind which can be with those things is experiencing mental peace. And the mindfulness is fuzzy, there's a sense of me, my body, my knee pain, my back pain, my bad habits, my sleepiness, my restlessness, and it's quite oppressive. So this crown jewel, something that you can use this method to realize your inner worth, your true inner worth as a conscious being, as a human being. To be born human, a lot of merit has been accumulated, a lot of good deeds, a lot of kindness, a lot of patience, a lot of virtue. You get this human form and this human mind which has these sophisticated abilities. Ajahn Chah said, having a human mind is like having a mansion. Most people spend their whole lives in one or two cramped, dusty, dirty rooms. He says, once you learn what a mind is, how to use it, how to train it, you realize that there's these beautiful, many beautiful rooms in this mansion. That's your inheritance. Most people don't pay any attention to their inheritance. I heard just today, we went to the art gallery, a friend told me that somewhere in France somebody knocked down a wall in the apartment and they found this masterpiece behind the wall. It was worth many, many, many millions of dollars. Our minds are like that. We've got these walls that we've built up through delusion that we can knock down with mindfulness and wisdom, and you suddenly see there's treasure there, great treasure. What kind of treasure? The four divine abides, abidings, abodes, loving kindness, compassion, empathic joy, appreciative joy, equanimity. You train the mind to incline to these divine states, sublime states. It's extremely pleasant. The Lord Buddha calls them the divine abidings because we can abide in them. It's like a heaven realm in the here and now. We don't have to be reborn in heaven. Train your mind in meditation, in mindfulness, and then incline the mind once you've established some clarity, some stability, consciously pick up loving kindness as a meditation object. And this, when people are disciplined, can be cultivated to a state which is described as boundless. They're sometimes called the immeasurables, because there's no limit to the extent to which they can be radiated from a trained mind into the conditioned universe. Amazing. But it requires a committed discipline. It's one of, in terms of the pursuits, the various things that we pursue, many of them aren't worthy of the attention and the energy that we give them because they don't give very good results. These practices give wonderful results. A divine abiding, a sublime abiding, a heaven-like state here and now. If you train in just picking up the perception, the way these things get powerful is through repetition. Train yourself to have compassion, train yourself to have metta. The people who used to upset you, the people you used to react to, you see these things coming, and if you have it, it's like a muscle. Once that muscle is strong, you can decide to respond with metta instead of being upset. Whereas before, you used to get upset, you had no choice. Here she comes, she says it again. That same person, you train your mind, they're coming, they're saying it again, you can look at them and you can smile. Understanding that their mind state is just a mind state, it's not them. Understanding that it's painful, you truly wish that that person could be free from painful mind states, and you don't identify with it either. It's not their mind state. I don't see them as that mind state. I don't have to react to that mind state. It will arise, stay for some time and cease. It's just a feeling, it's just an energy. You can look that person in the eyes, you can smile, and you can think, may you be well, may you be happy. These things require cultivation, but they're well worth the effort. Not only do they reduce the suffering, a pleasant abiding here and now, they generate enormous amounts of merit. Lord Buddha says there's no other quality conducive to heavenly rebirth than the practice of loving kindness. And so just this simple training in coming and sitting, inclining the mind to be with the felt experience, knowing that it's sitting, just trying to know the breath, letting go of other perceptions, past, future, other people, and just keeping on trying, and just gently restraining, and just staying, stay. Such a simple activity, but leading to profound states of samadhi, leading to great insight, liberating wisdom, and incredibly blissful, boundless states. Hopefully I've aroused your interest and faith in the practice of breath meditation, metta. Continue to meditate together now for another 20 minutes. And just try to really know the beginning, middle and end of an in-breath. Really know as a feeling, just aware, hold it in awareness, keep the mind in the middle. Allow a sense of clarity to rest in the present. Don't pick up the past or the future, other people. Allow yourself to rest. Keep the mind in the middle. Sit in the chair in the mind. Just 1 or 2 minutes of the meditation left now. Listening to meditation instruction, listening to Dhamma reflection, practicing meditation, all of this generates good karma. I like to encourage people to dedicate the merit, share the merit at the end of the meditation session. Deceased relatives and friends, people who might be experiencing difficulty, anyone that you can think of in particular. Other people dedicate merit to all beings everywhere. You can dedicate the merit as you wish. Anybody feel more peaceful than 1 hour ago? Raise your hand if you feel peaceful, please. Sadhu. Very good. See, if you have confidence in the method, confidence in your ability, this faith faculty is very helpful. It gives rise to energy. With that energy, you can then apply your mindfulness with consistency. You apply your mindfulness with consistency, a little bit of samadhi arises. Another way to say samadhi arises is the mind actually collects inwards in the body, or in the mind, in the center of your body. With a clear mind you can see things with more wisdom. These 5 spiritual faculties that we have, Lord Buddha explains, that I just mentioned: faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom. Lord Buddha explains they can be cultivated so that they are powers. And those powers, when cultivated similarly to what he says about 4 foundations of mindfulness, lead to the deathless, merge in the deathless. Those 5 simple things liberate minds, and we know how to cultivate them, and know how to apply them. It's one of the contemplations of Lord Buddha after his enlightenment. He spent 1 week thinking about what he'd accomplished and how wonderful, how marvelous it was, and thinking, how did I do that? Because it's subtle, difficult to realize, and he recognized these 5 faculties, when cultivated to be powerful, maintained in being. Just these 5 things led to this liberation. So very fortunate, Lord Buddha explained that to us, and left us these instructions, these methods. Because you came to the Buddhist Society as people who are interested in meditation, that's what I've been encouraging you with. Today we have an optional activity also. So some of you might be wondering, where do Ajahn Achalo and Ajahn Pah Pong live? I've been living in Thailand, mostly in Thailand, for the last 20 years. Ajahn Pah Pong has been living in Thailand the last 5 years. I've been building a monastery called Anandagiri in Phetchabun province. Some people in the room are interested to see how it's progressed, so I'm going to show a little slideshow, but I do want to stress that that's optional. I'm not going to force you to look at the baby photos. Abbots can be a bit like mums and dads with kids. Look at the photos. So you're welcome to look at the photos or not. So, are we going to move that closer to me? Or? Okay, I'll go over there, yeah. Okay, the mic's here, yeah. Okay. Turn that one on, isn't it? Warming up. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay, so this is what the land looked like. One man had about 7 acres, a Thai man, and he found that piece of land very suitable, quiet place in the mountains for meditation, but he found that he was very busy and he wasn't able to spend much time there, so he decided it would be better to offer it to the monastics and offer it to somebody who might develop it. So he offered that to me, representing the Sangha, and this is what it looked like when we first arrived. That's what it looked like after 1 year. You're about to see what is possible when living in a Buddhist country is a bit like playing on the home field. Have a lot of people cheering for you. You see that our first building there in the forefront had a grass roof. We used that grass roof thatch for 2 years. After about 6 months, a family who actually own a building supplies company, a factory, large factory, similar to Hardy Corporation, the Thai version, asked for the opportunity to offer us their materials. So the other 2 kutis in the background are made by materials produced by them, and they were a gift. They designed some kutis for us, and then one day, I'm not joking, 30 tons of hardware were offered to us. And then the next week, if I recall, another 20 tons. And it was quite an interesting activity, getting the 50 tons of hardware from the bottom of the hill up the top of the hill. This is after 4 years. You see our roof has been replaced with quality roof, and you can see that trees have grown. We get a good rainfall here. We're not too far from national parks. We're between 2 national parks, some distance to the east and some distance to the west, but being between large forests, we get more rainfall, and also we get fog and mist in the cold season. The flat parts of Thailand don't get the mist. And we get summer storms because of the altitude. The monastery is at 860 meters above sea level. We often get summer storms. So trees grow more quickly here than other places. So planted, the 7 acres is now 50 acres. Friends of the monastery helped to buy surrounding pieces of land, so that now it's about 50 acres. We planted 20,000 trees approximately. Another angle, how things looked when I arrived. 5 years later. The building on the left is the Dhamma Hall, which was completed last year. You can see the trees, many of the trees. So where I'm standing when I took this photograph is the edge of the monastery land. There's a village behind me, but as you can see there's a nice buffer between the monastery and the village, that will all be a forest within about 5 to 10 years. That will become a forest. This is our Dhamma Hall. Do you like it? So this is this building supply company's tiles on the roof. I'm a fan of terracotta, you will notice. Terracotta bricks, and I wanted to... My favorite architectural style is Nepali pagoda. But I wanted to honor the fact that we live in Thailand, so I was aiming for a Sukhothai Nepal fusion. And so you might not know it, but these lotus pots at the front of the hall are traditional Sukhothai ceramics, and the elephants are a traditional Sukhothai kingdom image. And the bricks, I was trying to go for something that looked traditional, so the bricks around the posts and the bricks around the balcony don't have any function. It's actually a metal frame building, but the bricks were there to help it look old. These are some of the people that make such things possible. These are local people coming for the tree planting, and you see they very kindly offered the Ajahn some ice cream at about 11:30 in the morning, just before we have to stop eating at 12. They came to plant the trees, they bought the ice cream, they handed out the ice cream. Very nice people. Here we have a bit of a car park building project. These are the villagers. They were all working for free. I came and we laid some pavers basically. This is a tree planting day, of which I think we've had 5 tree planting days. These are all volunteers, kids, school kids, soldiers, teachers, nurses. Thai people love to come and plant trees and take photos of planting trees, and then they don't do a single thing to take care of them. But at least they come to help plant the trees. Local kids. This is several years ago, 4 years ago. They're all quite a bit bigger now. They're all teenagers, actually. And isn't she cute? That's Kim. Terrible thing happened. Kim's father died in his sleep one night. Probably had heart disease and didn't know. Used too much pesticides on his rice. Went to sleep. Didn't wake up. He was in his mid-30s. But you'll be happy to know that Kim and her sister get monthly scholarships to go to school from Ajahn Achalo's Malaysian disciples. This is another first year picture. That's that brick road that we were making. Things look more like that now. Monastery sign. This says Anandagiri. That was after 2 years. You can see the trees are getting up. That's actually about a year ago. We have a lovely stone stupa imported from Nepal, believe it or not. And this area was an area of a lot of communist guerrilla activity 30 or 40 years ago. And although it looks very peaceful, there are quite a few tormented souls hanging around. And I felt that we needed to do something to brighten the psychosphere, as it were. But I didn't want to block the view. We didn't have much flat space, so I'd seen these beautiful stupas in Nepal carved from stone. And there's a man holding between Ajahn Pavro and the man wearing white. It's very interesting. I was in Ladakh with a friend. I mentioned that the other day, at the time of the mudslides. And I'd seen these stupas, these stone stupas in Kathmandu Valley, very old ones. And there's in a lobby of one hotel, there were a few of them. I'd always thought they were very beautiful. And I was thinking it might be really nice to have one because they have a lot of refined detail, but they're This is when we're making the foundation for the stupa. Each of the villages put something precious in the foundation. We put some Bodhi leaves from the Bodhi tree, we put soil from the 4 holy sites of India, little pieces of the blown up Buddha from Pakistan, the Bamiyan Buddha, and many things, as well as 3,000 blessed amulets from Ajahn Anan. And anyway, so I was in Ladakh in the middle of nowhere, literally, passing through one town for one night, and this gentleman was passing through, coming back. We were going to a Himalayan lake. It turned out that he'd studied sculpture with the man who made the stupas in the hotel lobby, where we'd seen them in Nepal, and that he spoke fluent Nepali. And so he was able to liaise and coordinate. And this is a sandstone Buddha, carved in the Gandhara style of Pakistan. This was made in Thailand. You'll see how it comes together, in a few more pictures. Anyway, so he was able to coordinate to help us. This is a Bodhi tree that we replanted. The man who offered the land said, this is interesting too, the man who offered the land said he had a Bodhi tree and he was willing to offer it. He took me to see it. In my memory, the Bodhi tree was about that big. And I called him up and said, okay, we'll take that Bodhi tree, we're ready now, we have a place for it behind that Buddha statue. So these are the villages. I went down and I got down there and they had already kind of chopped all the way around it, and I was like, anyway, so it's this big. And I was thinking, we're not going to be able to get that up the hill. I was a bit worried. But we did get it up the hill. It took all day. So what we had to do is, this is the villagers pulling the truck. And they had to put the tree, you'll see the tree, they had to place the tree down, pull the truck further up, place the tree down, pull the truck further up, and we finally got it in this hole, top of the hill, planted behind the Buddha statue. Here we're putting blessed amulets in the stupa. Ajahn Pavro and friends helped to make it. The monks put it together themselves. It's concrete filled in the center. We were making little mandalas. It's a lot of fun, actually. And coming together. So this area, I've been inspired by Vulture's Peak in Rajgir. We had a Holy Sites slideshow a couple of nights ago. I showed you pictures of Vulture's Peak. The Buddha used to come on retreat on top of this mountain. This was the site of his kuti. So I always thought that was really beautiful, that you could have a sacred holy site with no roof, the sky as the roof of the temple, and contemplation of emptiness. So I've had a lot of nice meditations on Vulture's Peak, and so I was inspired to try to do something similar. So there we have, this was a group of Malaysians that came, so we have our own little Vulture's Peak. And that's the stupa, and that's the Buddha and the Bodhi tree behind him. This is on the highest point of the monastery. A few prayer flags, Tibetan prayer flags. On Vulture's Peak in India there's a lot of prayer flags, so we add a touch. This is what it looked like about a year ago. You see that Bodhi tree took quite well. I've noticed that it's growing about 75 centimeters in every direction each year. So it's only been planted for 3 years and it's come back quite well. A very nice Buddha statue. This was carved from yellow sandstone from Thailand. Does he look peaceful? When you look at that statue, do you feel like meditating? Right. So the whole point of these spaces, now I'm going to show you that the whole point is that people come and practice and enjoy a sense of serenity. So these are local villages and a good friend of mine, Ajahn Sri Panyo. These are other friends, monastery friends. Now don't practicing Buddhists have nice smiles? These are all good mates of mine, my aunties. This was our very first katina. Ajahn Pasano, Abbot of Abhayagiri Monastery. He was the Abbot of Wat Nong Pah Pong when I ordained. he came and enshrined the relics into the stupa. Ajahn Anan gave us the relics. That's some of that mist I was talking about. In the wet season it often looks like this. Different angle. You see the mountains in distance, rolling mountains. Ajahn Sumedho visited us after he was on retreat, keeping to himself, but after a couple of years here he came and he was a senior monk for our third katina. See the way we decorate with the marigolds. This is something I learned from India. If you go to Bodh Gaya, you'll see these water bowls with these marigolds, flower offerings. I think it's very beautiful, very simple, inexpensive and beautiful way of making things look very nice on special occasions. This is where we have our meal, small little hall, monks' kutis, courtesy of that building supplies company. This is the women's section. You'll see the repeated theme of terracotta bricks. Women's section in early morning light, with mist. Arms round. These people have given food every single day for 5 years, without fail. When I first went to this land, the village looked quite poor and I wasn't sure if they could feed us, and I went and I asked them. I didn't want to have a kitchen. And I went and I asked them, could you feed a couple of monks and do you want to? And they said, please, please come and stay, Ajahn, we would love it. I said, well, will you feed us? They said, we will feed you. And they have. I put on weight since going to live in this poor village, so very beautiful people. They don't have a lot of spare cash, but they take their duty of giving alms to the monks very seriously, and they're really very devoted to it. It's very touching. There's the village headman with his daughter kneeling in the centre. Kids, you can see the kids learn from a very early age to give food and to raise their hands and to kneel down, receive blessings. This was actually the very first alms round when I was coming and asking them, do you want monks? I wasn't sure if they'd want any Western monks either, because where I ordained, Ubon Rachathani, is a 9-hour drive from here. They don't have any experience of foreign monks, and I wasn't sure if they would think we're a bit strange. But they all gave a lot of food. That was the very first blessing. That's an interesting light. Can you see that? I have no idea what it is, but I think it's auspicious. Another first year, this is the donor, I'm chatting with him. He offered his favourite piece of land. He gave it to the Sangha. It was very beautiful. That's what's in that space. Now we have a granite image of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva offered by Chinese Malaysians. We have this Buddha. Some people in Melbourne helped to offer this Buddha. This is made from Burmese white marble. In the distance, in the wet season. In the dry season it doesn't look like this. All the leaves fall off all of the trees and it has an austere beauty, but in the wet season it looks very lush. That's our Buddha. Once again you'll see Ajahn Pabra and I went up to look at this Buddha factory in Chiang Rai province, and again there's a fusion here, because I think that Theravada should refer to ancient India, and so that halo behind the Buddha's head is reminiscent of the Buddha teaching the Dhammacakka image, the famous image in Sarnath Museum. So that was carved as a separate piece, and it was a little bit stressful actually, because Ajahn Sumedho was coming for the Katina, and we wasn't sure it was going to be finished. I personally went up and encouraged them to finish it. I had a layperson. We were giving encouragement. The layperson was giving bonuses to all of the workers to carve more quickly. So they were carving until 9 o'clock at night, actually. And it arrived and was installed, I think it was 3 days before Ajahn Sumedho came. This is where we were looking at Buddhas and choosing. I'm not sure, is that the one? Is that the one? There are many, many Buddhas in this place. And I realized it was nice, but it wasn't quite. And here you can see they're working on. This is my youngest Malaysian disciple to my right there, Yi Hao. Came up to join in on his school holidays. We're checking the proportions. We have to use forklifts and cranes, and the statue itself is about 1.5 ton. The green piece under it is 2 ton, and the halo behind it is about 300 kilograms. So I remember they were lifting it up, and the ropes weren't tight enough, and this halo kind of went on the ground. I'm like, oh no. Anyway, it didn't break. Here we're installing eyes made of lapis lazuli. We gave the Buddha some eyes. And here's the day. I'd ordered the crane to come half an hour before it arrived. It arrived half an hour late. 10 minutes after the time that I told it to come, it started to rain. And the problem with this is we were installing it. That halo is basically an incredibly steep hill behind it. And this that they're about to put this base on is granite. And so we're like literally standing on wet granite, trying to place something round, smooth, highly polished and shiny into a thin slit without it rolling down the mountain. And I think Thais believe that Nagas like to express their rejoicing by sending rain. And we were like, not now, guys. Could you please just let us get it in first? Anyway, all's well that ends well. You can't see in the picture, but it's it's about that steep, and it goes for about 300 meters. We would never have got it up there again. Okay, this is an Ajahn Sumedho came for the Katina just a couple of days later. So this nice outdoor space where we can receive larger numbers of monks and larger numbers of lay people. So as you can see, Thai people like to come in larger numbers to these events. I think we had about 200 people came. And there was a space for them to sit and a nice statue. This time it's Ajahn Sumedho who's installing the relics. No, he didn't want to walk up the ladder, so he gave me the honour. But he was putting them in the reliquary, the stairs, yes. And so I was paying respects to him, asking for permission. That's putting the relics in the crown of the Buddha statue, and then you put the crown protrusion in on top of that. Look what occurred in a photograph moments after. So there's only one photo with these kind of lights in it. You could say it's solar flare from the sun, it might be. But it's very interesting the way that gold sphere is just above the crown where the relics were put. And the Buddha is believed to have had a Chapanarangsi, is it 7 colours the Buddha aura emanates. So I think we have a bit of a rainbow there. Who thinks it's solar flare on the lens? Who thinks it's the blessings of the Buddha? Who doesn't know? Not sure. Malaysian group, at my request, they wanted to offer the statue, so I told them that they could also have the pleasure of blessing the statue. So they came and they're chanting Heart Sutra in Chinese and in Sanskrit as well, 9 times in each. It was very interesting on this day because at the hall where we were eating the meal, 200 meters away, there was no rain at all. But the day that, precisely while they were doing the ceremony, once again, those Nagas I think, but it was raining. Everybody's standing on cold, wet granite in the rain. We also put many nice things under the foundation. That's a jasmine garland made of hundreds of small little jasmine blossoms. It's about 2 meters long jasmine garland. Another interesting light in the rain there. Just kind of showing various pictures of people acting in harmony. Ajahn Pavro personally made the, what do you call it? The thing that the bell hangs on. Didn't use any nails, it's all, what do you call it? Huh? Mortise and tenon. It took him a month, a bit more than a month. It's very beautiful. Oh yes, that's an interesting thing to tell you. The bell is a cap piece of a bomb from the Vietnam War. The Americans use the very best metal for their bombs, and it makes a great noise. Yeah. So before building the Dhamma Hall, I wanted to go and study Sukhothai so that we could try to do honor to, this is the ancient Sukhothai, some of the ancient Sukhothai ruins. So we were going to kind of study how they do things and how we might replicate, because the image, one lady wanted to offer an image that was based on Sukhothai style Buddha, and I thought then we should try to do it properly. It was a very beautiful Buddha statue, you'll see in a few pictures. So we went to Sukhothai and we went to the museum. This is a very big, very famous Buddha image. I was asking for his inspiration. Help me to do my job, my Lord. This is how it begins. Locals, we're coming to invite the Buddha statue. The Buddha statue is 4.5 tons, and because of that it had to go in the Dhamma Hall before there was a Dhamma Hall. So we had to make a strong foundation for it, and then once again we went out with the villagers, and a couple of the kids had ordained for the hot season as novices. There's the Buddha behind us, some of the locals. Doesn't he have a nice face? These are some of the best stone sculptors in Thailand. They're actually Burmese by birth, but they've been working in Thailand, perfecting their art for a couple of decades. There's those village boys that became novices for a month. The Buddha's arrived. He's in green plastic. Getting it on the stand wasn't as hard as I thought, but getting those pieces of wood out from underneath, that wasn't easy. We tried to do this auspicious chanting when the Buddha touches the platform, so we'd do it, but it didn't work, and we'd do it again and it didn't work. We all got quite sunburnt. But when Sanjay was there actually, this auspicious occasion. See that grace of that palm, isn't it beautiful, that hand? Very beautiful. Putting they make these removable flames for the relics. Another jasmine blossom. So here is with the mountains behind. People ask, why does Ajahn Achalo have bodhisattva images in his monastery? And Ajahn Achalo loves and respects Buddhas, Bodhisattvas and Arahants. Bodhisattvas are future Buddhas. If you don't have Bodhisattvas, you don't have Buddhas. And I like to recollect, Devanusati is taught by Lord Buddha. So the Bodhisattvas live in Tushita heaven before they be born as Buddhas. So Maitreya, we understand, will be reborn. He will descend from Tushita heaven. This Bodhisattva we know as Avalokiteshvara, similarly abiding in Tushita realm. So recollecting beautiful beings, I was talking before, the mind becomes like what it recollects. So if you recollect beings that have boundless compassion, boundless purity, boundless metta, it's very skillful. You see, quite strange. It's Buddha and this Bodhisattva and surrounded by mud. That's what it looks like now. More of the process. You can't build anything beautiful and clean without making a lot of ugly mess. That's my experience. There's a lot of patient endurance to be practiced before. Here I'm training the bricklayer how to lay bricks. You would be amazed. Like in Australia, everybody can lay bricks, can't they? But in Thailand, they make bricks very messy and then they put stucco on them. So nobody's trained putting their bricks straight. Several times I had to go and knock the bricks down and say, when I said straight, I meant straight. It's our roof. It's quite artful. We live in a strong wind area. When the storms come in, it's very, very strong wind, and so sometimes they spot weld, but for our structures they weld all the way around, all four sides. So it's actually very strong. It has to be very strong. This is the Centerpiece Lotus. We went in the center of the hall. The owner of a granite quarry and factory came and asked, it was very interesting, she came and asked for the opportunity to offer a lotus like this, and she asked me what colours I would like. So I went for terracotta and white. It worked very nice. This is my gardener, who also is a bricklayer. He can lay straight bricks very slowly. Another Bodhi tree. We decided to plant a Bodhi tree in front so that when we circumambulate, we could circumambulate the Bodhi tree. Again, I just think it's really lovely if you can have these direct, clear references, particularly in Theravada. The insight Lord Buddha had under the Bodhi tree, the Vajrasana. And so we put this Bodhi tree in the center of the courtyard in front because I didn't want it to just look like a car park. This is another interesting story. Somehow things end up bigger than I ever dared to imagine. A lady asked me, is there anything that you want, Ajahn, for this building project that's not yet complete? I said, yes, I'd like a Bodhi tree. And I remember seeing one on like an hour down the road. Again, it was like that size. And I said to her, I remember seeing one at such and such a place. Would you mind popping in? It was on their way home. Would you mind popping in and seeing if it's still there? And she called me up and she said, it's not there. And she said, but Ajahn, how big would you like it? And I said, well, this was my mistake. I said, as big as possible. And so she searched the country for the biggest Bodhi tree she could find. And she told me it was 6 ton. The problem is the local cranes can lift 3 ton. And so we're thinking, what are we going to do? And we couldn't find a crane to lift 6 ton. So anyway, when it came to their home, a big crane had to pick it up and place it on a smaller truck. And that big crane had a scale. And it turned out that it wasn't 6 ton, it was 16 ton. And so, at the time, we didn't think that we could get a big crane up the hill, but we had no choice but to try. And amazingly enough, we were doing the chanting as the truck was coming up, please may the truck be able to make it, the crane. And that's what it looks like now. And you see we've used the lava rock to try to capture some of that sense for the ancient Sukhothai. It got all of those leaves in just 6 months because it had actually been dug up 6 years before and had been watered and fertilized, and it was just waiting to be put in the ground. Once again, I like to show you why do we create these spaces. This is my teacher Ajahn Anan, who finally came to the monastery once everything was finished. Some of his monks. And Ajahn Anan, it was an unfortunate synchronicity. Ajahn Anan's health was terrible actually. When I was very much attached to his blessing and depending on him coming and giving some encouragement. It actually took 4 years, and there were several occasions where tears were shed, let me tell you. Anyway, all's well that ends well. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, they say. And, this, once again, good opportunity for putting relics into another Buddha statue. I'm blissing out here, I'm so happy. Ajahn Anand's funny, and he's like, Achalo, it's heavy. Okay, I'll help you. This is our katina. The most recent big event was our katina. It was the formal offering of the Dhamma Hall, formal offering of the Buddha statue. Somebody's Facebook notification. Go away. This is the lady in the forefront is the lady who's the co-owner of the building supplies company. Her name's Noi, very generous. And she was the one who wanted to offer the Buddha statue. Her mother has the beginnings of dementia, was losing her balance. So Thai people believe that if you offer a Buddha statue and dedicate the merit, that makes the form more stable and can slow down. And her mother did get significantly better. These people were offering the katina, and that's a full hall. So we have a nice space now. It used to be pretty cramped in our old small hall. I wasn't intending to build a larger hall until a few more years, but it came together last year. The building supplies company wanted to build, and someone was willing to help with wages. And the only thing, we had a 4-hour conversation. The only obstruction to this building project was the fact that I didn't want to do it, because I was still tired from the previous ones. But then sometimes you realize, well, the hall that we have is too small, and all of these things are ripe. And so I realized that I had to do it, and I don't regret it now, because we can welcome all of these people, and very conducive to their faith. And, he's an original donor of the land and the lady who offers the materials. Happy Abbot, thank God it's all over. Thank Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Donors who came later, many more people. This is a group of Malaysians, very, very loyal and generous supporters. Okay, that's it. these kind of things. The monastery is already bigger, and in some respects more successful than I ever imagined it would be. I had only ever envisioned a place for 3 or 4 monks. But like I said, when you do things in Thailand, a lot of people want to help. Also, it's a suitable place for meditation, so it's nice to welcome more friends. We usually have 5 or 6 monks, 1 or 2 nuns. Accepting something, this is, I think we're all aware of this, plans don't go as we plan, ideas are just ideas. In taking on some land and in deciding to build a monastery, it's a bit like having a child, and then you have to do your best to steward the growth of that child in a healthy way. And then it's not quite how you think, but sometimes it has a life of its own, and you have to rise to the occasion and do what you think is best. And recently we discovered that this is a problem in Thailand, is that there's not very clear zoning, and there's been unfortunate developments in many parts of the country where the very same places where the monks come to meditate on the mountain is the same places where they build resorts where they have karaoke on Fridays and Saturday nights. So people come from the city, get drunk and sing, and they amplify it very loudly, which is very unfortunate. So we were told 2 months ago, that the neighbour was selling their land, and that they were going to build a resort for Chinese tour groups. And so we quickly spoke to her, and I didn't want the monastery to become any bigger because 50 acres of a forestry project is already a big project. But you see where my little arrow is? This is where the resort would be built, right next to the women's section. So fortunately, the lady agreed to sell it at half the price. She was going to sell it to the Chinese developer, and she agreed to give us 1 year. But we're going to have another 20 acres of forestry project. And if anybody had ever thought they'd like to contribute towards a little bit of land to make a forest monastery, you are able to join in that offering if you've been inspired by Anathapindika or King Bimbisara, Visakha. It's about $20 for 1 square meter. So if you like to offer 1 square meter, it's as you whatever. It's you have an opportunity. And actually, she's given us permission to plant trees. We'll be planting 5,000 trees in June. It's one of those things, like I was saying, like you have a particular vision, you don't necessarily want things to be too big, but then at a certain point you realize it would be very unfortunate, having invested this much love and commitment into creating something that you hope will be peaceful for a long time, and then you find out that right next door will be a resort. So sometimes it doesn't seem like there's much choice. But in the long run, and to have a larger forest and more of a sense of peaceful space around it as a protection, it's good for the world as well, it's good for the monastery, it's good for Thailand. There are 2 other sides where the monastery actually joins the forest reserve, so on those 2 sides nobody can build anything, thank goodness. But there's this side and then right in front of the monastery that are still a little bit vulnerable. So if we can protect it, it's probably best. Okay. So the new forest will go on the left-hand side. Basically, it'll be the same, come to the same point, but just goes further along, and